Hello, good morning or good evening if you are watching this elsewhere. You can see this edition of Crossy's Corner has a very special guest, a very colourful, flowery guest as well. One of the world's greatest ever oarsmen, Eric Murray at Kiwi Pair. Great to see you, Eric.
Hey, thanks, Martin. Mate, I've been wondering when you were going to get me on here. I was like, shit, it's been about a year or so since you've been doing some broadcasts, and I'm like, man, I thought I would have been top of the list.
Yeah. Well, you were top of the list, but I was just waiting for a good time, and it had to be in the New Zealand summer. What have you been doing today, Eric? You look in fine form.
Mate, I just actually went and had a game of golf with Steve Williams, who was the Kiwi caddy that used to be with Tiger Woods. So like I'm right back into my golf. Love it, It's a great sport. And yeah, just through his son Rose at Westlake Boys in Auckland.
Yeah.
And so through a few friends, I went down and spoke to the school and did some bits and pieces. And I said, oh, yeah, that's Steve's boy. And I said, man, hook me up with a game of golf. And subsequently from that, so he wants me to chat to his boy and give him some tips because he's like an under 16 that does a pretty good erg. And he's he's just right into rowing, school kid, passionate about it. So, hey, if I can help and I get some benefits by playing golf with one of the best sports people, in the world, I'll be like, mate, that's all me.
Well, what did you get round in today?
I was a bit bad. It was 80. So my handicap's like 6 at the moment. So it's
that low.
I know. Hence why, I've sort of got right back into my golf, and I play every weekend, and you go and practice. And funnily enough, really good friends, with good rivalries that you'll know that you created over the years. I chat to Mike Gennaro from the American Cruise, and of course he's right into his golf as well. So we're like sending our cards and sending, oh mate, I got an eagle today, or we'll be like, and so we're just chatting, and our handicaps are really the same. So we're always like, mate, if one day we'll get back together and we'll go and have a whack, and it'll be bloody good fun.
Oh wow, that's wicked. So summer looks good in New Zealand, certainly by your tan and your shirt.
Yeah, I got to say, we are pretty lucky over here, just with what we did, we're lucky we're an island country where the government could just go, guess what, we're locking down, and we've actually, we've had a good run of no virus. It's all in the managed isolations, but we've got nothing in the community, and that's pretty much the key. So, I hate saying it, but we just going about our daily lives. We're contact tracing as much, and that's the thing. We've actually got to get hard to go and contact trace. That's what everyone's just not doing, because we're like, hey, it's not here. But we're sitting right on that knife edge where the new strain, if it gets out in New Zealand, we'll go back and lock down, because we're so small and they just don't want our public system to be overrun. That's literally what will happen to us again. So we can sit here and laugh and go, ha, look at us, we're in summer and we're just rolling around. But the fact is, it could quite easily turn just like that. So, just hoping and staying vigilant, and our rowing season's been going great. The kids are going to be racing and our national champs at the end of February. So everyone's right into it, fully keen, but it's only going to take something, and then it's all over again. No school finish, no regattas, no nothing. It could be you get to Henley again, and it might not happen, or it might not. You know what I mean? And so we're just hoping that doesn't happen.
And what's your reading of the Olympic situation? Do you think that's going to happen?
I don't know, I don't know. It was, I was still doing some bits and pieces with the Olympic team and this and that, and the word from Rob Bedell, chef de mission, was it's happening. It's about how it's going to happen, and how every sport does it, and et cetera, But that was in December, and literally 6 weeks later, look at what we're talking about now. And that was 6 weeks ago. Everyone was thinking, yeah, it's going to happen. Then all of a sudden, bang, guess what? Mr. Virus is fucking doubled his strength. And now it's like, okay, this is not looking great. And that's basically what's happened,
Yeah.
I can't see it happening. This is the thing, and it's just, if it's as infectious as it is and you can't control, et cetera, then why? I know economies and bits and pieces, and they need it in Japan and stuff like that, but I just can't I just don't know if it's going to happen. You can't roll out the viruses. How do you go, oh, let's give an athlete a virus over someone in the NHS or whatever, that needs it? You just can't, look at it like that. And so that's the other part. So if they're not going to do it, I just hope they come out early and go, it's out, and I'd hate to have that decision, but like we've made some pretty tough decisions in the last 12 months. And if it's not really going to be like that big a deal. It's just going to be like, guess what? Worst case scenario has happened and everyone will be disappointed, but we'll just move on and figure out what's the next step. That's it.
What about the New Zealand team? Where are they? Are the boats selected yet for Tokyo?
No. So as far as I know, everybody's still training, doing their bits and pieces in their squads. And I don't think that there's any full-on selections. And, they haven't really done a lot of racing. The second lot of racing is going to come up in 2 weeks. So that's really the next chance for everyone to have a go. And that will be really just signal who, I know the girls are going really well in their squad. Emma's going fast, whether it's the same double, same lightweight double, it depends on how people have been going over that summer. I think largely unchanged, but you still got to go through that process, and there could be people that haven't been on form. I don't know. I know Mahe's been injured for quite a bit, so he's getting back into it. Is he going to be fast enough? So I just don't know how it's going to happen. But it's only 2 months for us, and teams will be selected for going to World Cups or qualifying or to the Olympics if they happen.
And is Hamish still in the 8? And they've still got to qualify.
Yeah, they've still got to qualify. I know that those guys have been training pretty hard. It was a mixed winter because no champs or anything like that. So, Hamish, he did his training went hard, and I think he pumped out just before the end of lockdown a 5:44 or a 5:43. Yeah, but that was his end of year. He trained right through May, June, July, and then I think he did it maybe at mid-July, and he went that fast. And it was just well, I'm going to have 6 weeks off and then start training again for the summer, and that's basically what happened. So, I know he went pretty quick. I can't quite remember what it was, but it was just he was I'm fit. I put on strength and stuff like that. And so he was always going to be able to go quicker than he was when he was in the pair. But he managed to do it quite comfortably. And he's been training the house out, assault bike stuff. And on the erg, he's gone back to doing sub 145s for an hour at 140 heart rate. And you're just mate, you're back. He's going as fast as I would have been in 2016. That's the thing. He's only 34. So he's in his prime. I would say, in my opinion, I reckon between that 30 and 34 was my prime in terms of rowing. I felt the strongest. Probably 2014 when we did Cox Pair and the Coxless Pair, we just trained hard, and our numbers on the machines were epic. And and I was 32, so I definitely think around that age, and that's where he is now. He's still right here, and it's just if we've got a good group of guys, New Zealand could be competitive, could be really, really competitive. They're just off the mark, but if they do it well and everything does happen, and they do go to qualify, and I think they could do that comfortably, and then could be real contenders. So we'll just wait and see.
That's really interesting. I'm just trying to work out the logistics of a crew from New Zealand going to the European World Cup season and what that might mean in terms of coming back and having to quarantine for 2 weeks or something like that.
I think the word was that if they were going to go, they'd go from there and then just fly straight to Japan and quarantine in Japan and bits and pieces. So I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not. I don't have the luxury of being part of the program sort of decision making. I just hear it from a few people here every now and again. So we just got to wait and see. It's just how it rolls over here. And as I say, we're generally the first people to make the decisions, in rowing, because of course we finish end of February, team selected, and it's right, we're going to Worlds or we're going to Olympics or whatever it is. So everyone's done and dusted. They know what's happening. They know where they're going to go and race, this World Cup, that World Cup. It's just all sort of programmed out to you. And then you just structure your training around that and then hopefully win. So
Yeah.
things will happen here quickly, and it'll be pretty cool to see.
Yeah. What have you made since your retirement of the world of international rowing? The crews that you've seen, Croatians won the last World Championships in 2019 in the pair. What have you made from looking at the world rowing scene?
It's been a bit of a mix, really. I think, to be fair, one of the standouts out of the whole time, like I think did they lose one race in the last cycle, was like our women's double with Brooke and Liv Lowe.
Yeah.
So in terms of the most consistent, they lost one race out of probably 30 or 20 or whatever they've done in heats and semis at 6-8 World Cups that New Zealand's been to. And world champs, like I think, they lose in that 2017 year, or one of them, whatever it was? 2017, or no, 2018, whatever it was, the middle one. But they literally have been the standout, because you go, man, they kept winning. So they had a dominance over that event, whereas everybody else has been pretty scattered, I think there's been some good changes at the top, and some good crews have won some stuff, and there's some really close rivalries in different events, and then you take the men's single, and that's been a humdinger. It's been so good to watch, and so you look at sort of stuff like that, and it's really just been a great mixture of different people, and then people moving into things, like the Australians have rowed real well in the men's four. Like that Dutch crew rowing at the Europeans, mate, I was just baffled at how good that looked. Like if you wanted to watch textbook rowing, you watched that and you were just like, holy shit, they just every stroke moved away, and it was never slowing the boat, so smooth, no splash. You were like, wow, and they just looked so easy. And so there's been some really cool crews to watch in the way they've done things. The Romanians in the pair at Europeans, they just got out, and then they just sprinted all the way. They just kept it up at 40, tap, 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 and away they went. And it was like, shit, they're going to win it. And so that was pretty cool. Just people that just took things by the scruff of the neck and went for it. And it was great to see,
Yeah. I was talking to Christian Felkel, one of the British coaches. He's now gone to a role as chief coach in Germany. And we were talking about the tendency towards high rating. And, I'm thinking about you and Hamish in the pair. I mean, what was your take on the rate that you went over at in races? And, how did you experiment with that?
I think it developed. It would be really actually quite interesting to have a look over our years to actually see what our ratings were, because we generally did rate high right from the start. But I think what happened was it just became more noticeable, because we just would keep a rate from 20 strokes in, and it just wouldn't go any different from that point right to the finish line. Whereas everyone sprint, and then you always, as you guys as commentators, they're down on 36, now they're into a rhythm, blah, blah, blah. And you'd be like, Kiwis are still up on 40. And it was just because we hadn't done a big sprint, expended energy, come back down. And then we just went, okay, let's just have a bit of a pop off the start, and then just hit our speed, bang, rest of the race. And that spreadsheet that I sent you just shows that what we were able to do, in big finals, we slowed 1 second, or what was 1.6 seconds from the first to second 500. And then we actually went quicker in the third 500. And then we were only 1 second slower than our first 500 and the last 500. So we were virtually even splitting the race. And that's, I think, what made it noticeable. And the only other reason that it came about was because in 2010, after our world champs, at Carapero, where Pete and Andy nearly got us, the first week back, Dick just sat us down and he goes, right, we're not going to do any more weights. You're going to get faster by being fitter than you are by being stronger. We'll do 3 bungee sessions a week on the water, but we rode every single session. And that's what I think what happened over that, is because we probably lost a little bit of power from just explosive weights, because we just weren't doing them. And with Dick's program, it's not huge explosive intensity. And so basically from that, we were doing 8K races and 5K races, and we would just get it up high rate and just tap it along, find like the most efficient rhythm to hit the speeds. You know, and I was talking to Drew a while back about all my data that I'd sent him, and he was just like, mate, it's amazing. I said, yeah, well, you know, one thing that we used to do, like Hamish and I did really well, is we used to be able to pump it over in like 5Ks. And I think like our fastest 5K was like 16:10. So we're doing like 6:28 2K splits.
You're kidding?
5K. No. Yeah. So that was, you know, we were, I think we did like a 96.5% or a 97% 5K. And it was just like, but we rated like 36, 37 for 5K. And it was just so that we just didn't want to slow the boat down. And we just started to realize, well, why don't we use less energy at a higher rate than use more energy at, say, a 36? So you're not pulling as many watts, but you're just tapping along a little bit quicker. And because we didn't have that outright strength, because like we weren't doing weights, we were just rowing, which is, okay, we're getting into the rowing muscles, but we lost size. Like you could tell it, you know, we lost a bit of weight and bits and pieces. But the fact was we were just tapping it along, just tap, 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 tap. And so when we started racing against like Nathan and Joe and stuff and trying to out sprint them in the last 500 of like warm-up pieces, we were just like, we've just got to rate high and stay in front of them, you know, like play cat and mouse. They'd give us like a 5-second head start and we just had to find a way to try and beat them. And then over time, we just realized that rating high was a great way to do it. And because we were so fit and because we were just like, we were super, super fit, you could do it because it didn't feel strange. You didn't get to like 600 to go just going, nah, I'm dead, I'm going to blow up. Because we had done it in training for longer distances, it just allowed you to be able to do it for that 2K. And it just, I guess when you got into racing, you know, you're always going to go like a point, maybe a point and a half, sometimes too high when you're in like a big setting, you know, because you just got that much more pumped up in adrenaline and everything that's going to go for it. So you're always trying to get that little bit extra. And I think that's why when we would do those races, it was just 40 all the way. And, you know, now you're seeing a lot of crews just dapping along like, man, those Aussie 4, what they do, like 42 or 43 all the way?
Yeah.
2017, it was nuts, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. You mentioned that race in 2010 on your spreadsheet, which is talk a little bit about that. But that is the race with the smallest fade.
I love that race.
Yeah.
No, I love that race. No, we went. No, I think on that one, if I had it in front of me, we sub-splitted the second K by nearly 7 seconds or 5.5 seconds or something. And we had to. Like, if we were going to win, it was what we had to do. And like the first, Carapiro's notorious in pretty crappy conditions. The way the lake actually works is you sort of get a headwind at the start, sort of starts turning side through the middle. And at the end, it's quite calm because of the big bank over the side. And so basically it was like, it was always going to be tough in the first part of the race. And we just sort of went out, like I love that race because it really was a turning point in our career, where we just reacted to what everybody else was doing. You know, you did what every coach goes out and tells you to do, right? Get out on the start, see where you're sitting, and then react to that. You know, we'll try and push you, we'll try and do that. And so that was just what we did because that was what we were told to do. And so, of course, that's just what we did. And I'm looking across going, oh, yeah, they're beside us, you know, okay, go through 750, do a bit of a move. And I was like, okay, we're pulling level, you know, and then just before the K, shit, they're still there, 1200. And then like 1500, I had to go like that. And I went, fuck. And it was like, when you have to turn your head more than like 90 degrees and you've got to look backwards to see how far in front they are, you go, oh shit, we're in trouble. And I've mentioned it before somewhere, and like I still truly believe that the only reason that we won that race was because of local water. You know, like literally, I don't know what everybody does for pieces, right? You know, but everybody works off the boys, you know, predominantly, right? So 500 to go, you're like, right, and you might understand there's 10 strokes, we're going to lift some pressure or we're going to lift some rate, whatever. But then when you see that 250 line, it's like go 100% or die, like whatever, you've got nothing left, empty the tank. And we went about 350 to go. So I could see out of the corner of my eye, I knew that there's a little bit of a hump just before where the yacht club was, and then you had Ryan New Zealand, and then you hit the 250 meter mark. So it's about 100 meters. And I knew it was in. I just said, hey, gotta go. And like, we just basically, I think we just hit top speed before the British did. They hit it just after the 250. And I think literally I'd never ever spoken to them about the race, like never know when they were meant to do something or whatever. I just truly believe that we just got that jump on them and we were there. And that was all it came down to. And it was just like, it was the best race, like the closest one. And afterwards you like were elated, but you were like, I can't believe that just happened, you know? But what that really did was that, you know, that was just, it was an amazing time in that rivalry that we had. But what it did is after that year, we just sat down and said, man, we're not letting that happen again. We've got to like just come up with a way. And so our way was, and I don't know if I mentioned it to you one time or someone hit us up when we went to, like we sort of, it didn't really get seen until we went to like Hamburg that year. And of course we won that race in the heat by like 23 seconds or some stupid thing. And everyone came up to us afterwards and they were going, like, why don't you back off? Like, you guys were still rating like 37 at the finish. And everyone thought we'd just get out in front and just get out and go, oh, yeah, you know, take the rating down to 28 and just pedal it across the line. But our whole philosophy was we will go as fast in every single race that we do, whether it's a heat, a semi, or a time trial or a final. And if you want to keep up with us, good luck. So we never just did enough. We never went into a heat, like even though some of our times might suggest that we did, we'd go into it and we'd get out in front, we'd keep pushing, and we'd just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's why I think what created Hamish and I guess the legacy is when people watched us in the heats, we're that way. And of course, but if you watch a lot of other events, like definitely in the singles, you know, guys are in second place going, okay, I'm going to qualify for the semis. I'm just going to take it down and let everyone and throw in front of me. So we just went away from that. And it was just literally go as hard as you can every single race. Don't let anybody get sniff, and it's going to give us heaps of confidence. So that 2011 year was one of our best years, you know. And then by the time we got to the final in Bled, it was basically the same thing. We were just like, we're going to get out in front, and like just try and put a hammer, like nail in the coffin as quick as we can. And that's what we did through the middle K. And then of course, you know, Pete and Andy are sprinting to the line, and here's us both coming across the line in like 6:14 in pretty standard flat conditions, not much of a tail. And you're just going, man, you've got two exceptionally fast fucking pairs out there. You know, and that was it.
Did the pairs get easier for you when Pete and Andy stopped? Because your rivalry, I know you beat them every time, but you know it was kind of either one or the other was going to win. And in terms of you know when the event changed in 2012 when they went out, did it get easier for you
It did a little bit, but we didn't take. I think if we hadn't had the mentality that we had from that 2011 year, where it was just like go as hard as you can every single race, I think we would have just really got complacent. And I know people say, you know, don't get complacent. And I don't think we would have got complacent on purpose, but you know, you're really bugging and you just got to do that little bit extra, and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, you know, that type of thing. And then all of a sudden, all those little things can add up into something quite large. And I think we never took that off. We never took a foot off the accelerator. And even some of the first races, like in that 2012 year, were pretty close. You know, you had the Canadians that came back; they went hard. Like the French came back into it; they were going quick. Like the Aussies, actually, before that, were going fast. At Munich, they got third in Munich behind like us and the French. So of course they were going well. So everybody had basically taken and gone, okay, it used to be super, super competitive. And I think actually some better rowers came back into the boat, had an opportunity to say, man, well, we weren't going to before. We've probably definitely now got a medal. And if not, we'll try and still knock the Kiwis off. But in terms of like, if you want to find an Olympic like silver medal because you're like, I don't think we can beat so-and-so, but I'm pretty sure we can get second, you're going to go down in history with some Olympic medals. And it doesn't matter if it's gold, silver, or bronze. You know, gold's the best, but still winning an Olympic medal is history making. I definitely think that we got quite a few people coming back to just like make that happen. And so, it got slightly easier with in terms of pressure, but then the whole dynamic of everyone else now who was different that we hadn't raced before, you were like, okay, well, we know the French will pop out and, you know, but the Aussies, they're not too bad, you know, and so you'd have to start thinking like a lot differently about more people, rather than what happened was for like probably that 2-year period, it was just us and the GB. And we would know that we were going to be like miles in front of everybody else. And so we didn't, where all the race was about us two, not anybody else. So I think it just opened it up to more people. And it probably the difference between the winners and everybody else closed up.
Yeah, yeah. On that spreadsheet, you've got, is the stat for all the races that you've done, the average time was sub 6:30?
I think, mate, I could go get my laptop. I think our average time in all our races was like 6:25 or 6:26 or something for every single race.
That's phenomenal, isn't it? Over what races?
Yeah. What, 71? I think it ended up being.
That's an amazing stat.
Well, if you want, I can tell you the unofficial stat. The unofficial stat is 98-0, because we did we would race a lot of the regattas here in New Zealand, and then we had the Henley races, and then we went to Hollenbecker a couple of times. So if you took all our international races, like other regattas and our national stuff that we'd race as a squad, it was 98-0. So it's like, you don't really count those, but world stuff was 69. The Cox pair, that's 2 on top, so it's 71. It's actually quite baffling in a way. And I remember saying to someone, I was doing a speech and we had some like Q&A and stuff afterwards, and they're like, man, did you ever think you'd do that? And I was like, nah, because we just went out every race to try and win a race. When we started in the pair, it was like, cool, let's do the pair. We know we're pretty good. Let's try and win a race, or let's just try and win the worlds. Because you don't have to win. You don't have to win everything. Knowing what we did was different. But before that wasn't my mentality. Like when we're in the 4, we're like, okay, we're going to get top 3 to go to the semi. We're going to get top 3 to be in the final, and then we'll take it from there. But it's not like we're going to win today. And that was probably because it's a little bit of an experience and stuff like that. Ultimately, you're trying to win, but in the back of your mind, you know that if it's not going well that day, you've still got to make this period. And so that was still the mentality of the pair for like the first year, and then the second year in 2010, and then in third year, it just changed again. It's like, right, we're just going to try and win like every time. And then like 2012 came around, and then all of a sudden you're like, you won more than anyone else, and it's like, oh well, better not slow down now. And so that did play on our minds a little bit, but it wasn't like we would go. And the one thing was, we never went out to a race going, I hope we don't lose today. You basically just had to get the mindset in of, because if you're getting defensive, you're not on the attack. And so we had to be on the attack every single time, and we knew people were going to attack. And so we just had to make sure, because of all the foundation, that we were going to be able to just push it better than anybody else. And that was it.
Yeah. Over all those races, did you actually get quicker up until 2016? I know you've talked about, being in peak form in 2014, but did the pair get quicker? Because I guess one reason is, I'm looking at Rio and I'm thinking,
slowest.
Wow.
Yeah. And that gives you an idea, like for people that can't quite remember it, that it was that rough. Like we just broke 7 minutes. There was only 2 other occasions in all our heats, semis, everything that we didn't break 7 minutes. And this is the final of the Olympic Games, and we went 7 minutes. It's 40 seconds probably where it less than it should have been. Instead of doing 140s down the course, we're like struggling to hit 150s. Which at full speed. And anyone that's training in a 4 that their coach is going, right, we want to be training, tagging along like sub 140s, and you're not even hitting like 10 times that, or like 10 seconds quicker than that, slower than that at full speed. That sort of just shows you how slow that regatta was.
Yeah. Were you cautious in that final? Were you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, mate, didn't want to fall out. That was one. There's only been a couple of times, and because I steered our boat from the bow, there was only maybe 2 occasions in our whole time where we've ever hit buoys. My steering, I'm a demon. Like if I'm steering, mate, I could have no buoys and I'd be straight as. because I'd steered like our whole time, even when we were in the 4 and 3 seat, I steered because I was like, just bang, I could get it. Mate, if anyone wants a steerer, like, mate, come and find me. I'm sure you need them on the teams. You know, and that was it. And so we hit boys in the third 500 quite hard with that wind coming across, and the stern was actually pushing around. So I was fighting against it. And of course, I'm in the bow, so it's going to stroke side. So like Hamish is having to put the gas in, I'm trying to steer against myself while tempering my speed, you know. So otherwise, you're going to zigzag all over the course, and you're full tit in the final of the Olympic Games. So in the end, we actually ended up rowing it like onto the boys on Bondi's side, and I just had to like take some off so that he could pull it back. And it wasn't until those markers on the like last 500 came in that you got back in the line and you could actually just keep it going. And I think that's like how the Italians came through the Poms, like in the pier, and the South Africans came back from bloody being out of the race, was because I think once everyone just got out of that wind, they just went, oh, well, got nothing to lose, bang, and they went for it. You know, and people that had battled through the middle, I think British must have probably just been a bit tense and bits and pieces, and they had no response, you know, to the guys that just battled, got there without like being too tense. I reckon that was probably the difference, to be honest.
Yeah. Looking back on it, you know, that time you did in the heat in London of 6:08, which is phenomenal. I mean, I guess you got close to that, but I mean, what was it about that race that produced that time?
I don't know. Okay, so in terms of mentality, I knew we were going fast. Okay, so what we learned from our time in the pier was we knew how fast we were going before we turned up. You know, you do your 3-day out pieces, whether it's a K or whatever. So we were training in Argary before London, and we went down to Lucerne and we did a time trial, like against the double, against the women's quad. We had a 6-second head start on the double. Lightweight, no, sorry, it was with the lightweight double that year with Pete and Storm that ended up getting bronze. And we went off together, and we put probably a length and a half on them at the finish. And so, of course, time-wise, that's still 4 seconds quicker. It's probably like 1.5% quicker than them. Dead flat Lucerne, and we just dipped under 6:17. Wow. So I knew we were going fast, like Lucerne glass conditions. Yeah. And it was on the course, you know, like they had a couple of lanes out, bang, and the coaches did it. We had the GPS, everything, like 6:16.8 or something. And I was like, fuck, it's quick. And of course, so when we turned up to London, we hadn't raced anyone because the World Cups just seemed like there was quite a big distance that year between the World Cups. So of course we hadn't raced any, like, except our like lightweights and like our women's quad and stuff that we paced against. We hadn't raced anyone. So the same mentality came through, and I remember getting on the water to Bondi, and we did some warm-up pieces downwind, and he's like, mate, that's flying. And I just said, look, we need to have a good push today. Like we never even spoke about like the time, the record. And I just said, like, we just got to have a good push today. We can't just back off. You know, the wind's going to pick up, and if it's a little bit quick, we don't want to be hitting any water, so we'll just tap it along, get over top of the waves. You know, if you take the pressure off and it goes a bit bubbly, then you're pissed off with how you rode. And so the French shot out, and we knew we had to pass them like 600s, our big move, bang, we went through. And then all of a sudden we just kept the gas on and we just tapped it along. Like, we didn't raise the rate, but we just didn't slow down. And so we just tapped it along. So whatever speed we did through like the second, third and fourth, like I think, what did we do? We went through like just over 3:03, and then we finished at 6:08. So there's like less than a second fade between that first and second 1,000. And it was literally, we just tagged along and we got to the finish, and I was like, mate, that was awesome. That was quick, you know. And I said to Bondi, oh, mate, you know, how fast was it? And he goes, oh, shit, I forgot to start the speed coach. I was like, oh, okay. and so at the end, it was like, oh, and so I said, and he goes, oh, I can't have been that fast. I saw some like 136s through the middle. And so, like, whatever, you know. So I never really thought it was that fast. And it wasn't until we literally like got off the water, and everyone's like coming down to the pontoon, and like I think like Jean-Christophe and stuff were there, and people just going, well done, that was amazing. And we're like going, what? And then like they go, oh, you broke the world record. It was like 6:08. And like Matthias Verlinger from the Dutch team, that we used to race against in the 4, he just came down like big hug going, man, that was amazing. And we were just like, fuck, like just unbelievable, because we just gone out to have a really good push. And because probably we didn't have that pressure, we didn't get tense, we just tapped it along. So like I knew we were quick, but I just didn't know how fast, because we didn't have the perfect conditions. And they could have probably been a little bit stronger, but maybe we just timed it and it just had the perfect breeze coming down fast, for our boat. We're in lane 5. It was just perfect enough to like give us that push. And that's what happens, because you don't set world records like any other time than when you have those normally really intense races. Like, it's been a few occasions, but not many. And everyone's just like pumping along because there's like a huge screaming tailwind, like whether you're in Bulgaria or like Lucerne. When that wind howls through there, like you're just going, fuck, tents are just about to blow off, and you're just watching the boats going, phew, like, because it's so fast. But I didn't think London was that. So, we were a little bit like Drew in the pair, and I'm sure he's I don't know if you've ever had a good chat to him. Like, they used to think that 610 was their magical number, and I felt probably about the same. So I always thought, 614, because we got close a couple of times, and you can do thousands and they're sort of 304, and you're like going, shit, if we strung two of those together after doing 2 or 3 of them, you'd be like, man, we could go pretty close. But you're always thinking that you were going to always slow down that sort of 4 or 5 seconds between the first and second K. And just so happened, like with our training and everything that we'd been doing, which allowed us to just even split it. Then all of a sudden we even split perfect conditions, 608. It's like, far out, amazing. So like, could we have gone faster? I don't know. Possibly. I reckon in Amsterdam we could have gone faster if we didn't race the Cox Pier, because that was probably the only time that I felt really vulnerable in the pier. So in terms of like how we raced, because I would know from these pieces, and I generally have the confidence to say, mate, we did really good 1500 the other day. It was quick, it's sitting on 97%, okay, we're 10 days out from like a World Cup or whatever, or even World Champs. You just know you were going well. But on the morning of the final for the pier, which was the last of 6 races, I think it was 5 races or whatever, like I remember biking down to the lake, just going, my legs are so heavy. They feel like the day after like the World Champs, where you're just like, man, I've just, I can still feel what happened yesterday. And because we were just like, we had the same mentality, and maybe we shouldn't have, in terms of when we raced like the pier and the Cox Pier, we just had that, we go 100 the whole way. Whereas we probably should have backed off, like even in the heat of the Cox Pier, we won by a mile, and then the final, we just romped it. And then of course, even in the semi of the, like in the pier, we still romped that again. So it was sort of like, maybe we should have backed off, but that was just not what we did. And of course, so when we're in that final, and I was like, okay. And I remember saying to Hamish, because he was like, man, my legs are heavy. And we were doing the warm up, and I was like, man, they just don't have the same sting like our big bike warm up that we were doing. And then all of a sudden, like we're in the race, and I was like, look, they're going to get out in front of us. We're going to come back through. We just got to bide our time like we normally do. And lo and behold, like shit, we're last going through 500 or something. It's like, oh,
Eric, your sound's gone a little bit.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'll just make sure it clicks in. So, like in that race, we went through like the 500 behind, and then of course we get to the 1,000, and we've only just gone past, and then we just put the foot down. But it was a really sort of slow first K, and we could just never make that speed up. And so, we went across in 609. I definitely think it was quicker than 609, just because that course is just so, the wind when it funnels down there, same thing, if you get it at the right condition, it doesn't get too choppy in that last 250. And like, that's basically what happened with us. I think we had it there, but we were just too tired. Like we didn't have that. If we'd just been there to the pier, I think we would have rode away and maybe gone 6-7, maybe 6-6. Just because of like the conditions that it was. But I definitely think, because that year we were rowing really well. There's been, over our time, I look back and there's one, I'll tell you, there's one video I want you to go watch after this. Our final in the Hamburg World Cup in 2011.
Yeah.
I reckon there's a piece just after the 500 and they zoom in on us. I reckon we're rowing really well. I reckon that was that 2011 year we rode really, really well. Just a different thought process and a different mindset into how it was happening. And then again in 2015. So it sort of seemed like that year before the Olympics, we were ready to go. You know, that win that we had in Hague-Billet, you know, we win by like 9 seconds or whatever the hell it is. And that was they were good crews that we were racing against. And we just rode away. And I think, what did we do? Like 6:17 again, like flat augury conditions. And it should never have been that fast, you know, but it just was. So there was a few years, where I think we were doing it better than at others. And those two, like, definitely spring to mind out of all of it.
Yeah. Josh Butler's got a question there.
Oh, Josh, mate, how are you?
Yeah. So
yeah, what a damn pleasure, physiologist. Okay, so I reckon for anybody out there, a physiologist and a good physiologist is worth their weight in gold. You know, so a trainer, and everybody's got them. You know, they do all the lactate tests and they do all the bits and pieces. They know how to like adapt your body. And so with Dan, he gave me workouts specific for my 2Ks and like my world record attempts that I was doing on the rower. And it would be specific training. So, you know, like at certain wattage, like specific for certain lengths of time with small or large rests or whatever it was, to be able to adapt your physiology for you to hit that certain target. And because he had all the data with us anyway for like what our U2, U1 levels and stuff were, you sort of know what is humanly possible for you. And so he could look at it and go, okay, this is your power at 2 millimole, 4 millimole at full exertion, and then just graph it and go, I reckon you're going to do this right here. And so he basically did all our training programs with Noel right through. And so this is the other thing that probably like anyone that's read our book will know. In that period between 2012, so 2013, 14, 15, 16, we only rode on the water once a day. So everything else was done on the ergs, on the bikes. You know, I was just monstering the erg. I was like smashing out huge Ks. We started throwing in the occasional afternoon row, but we would generally like maximum 8 rows a week. Max. Shit, it was like the most. And so that was what it did, is that we actually ended up doing more training. So more specific heart rate focused training than we did previously with Dick, but we did less rowing. So what that meant was, we had to be really precise with what we were doing with rowing. You didn't have time, you know, if things start going downhill, you don't have a lot of time to get it back. But at the same time, we were like just pushing the physiology. So, you know, we could sit on these hour ergs, just monstering numbers, heart rate, just in training pace, which meant when we're out on the water in the pier, our training pace, you know, here's us trying to pace off women's 8s and shit like that, you know, just to show our speed. And that was, but we could, you know, and we could repeat it. You know, that was the best thing with us, is you could repeat stuff. It wasn't just a one-off. And that was what allowed us to do hard heat, hard semi, hard final. You know, all of that just kept combining into it. Now it's brutal as hell. Like, it's really, really difficult training. It's like, because you're basically trying to punish your body like every single day. But if you're looking for that gold medal, it's a more scientific approach than what like Tonks and like Spratlin and all the people that you hear that just are doing like 300K weeks and shit like that. It's a more specific approach in terms of time training at hard, high intensity, but in a better focus. So that's probably what we found. We were still training really hard like we had under the Tonks regime, but we were just doing it in a more scientific fashion.
Yeah. One of the things that, you know, you were famous for, you know, outside of winning all those races, was, you know, your epic efforts on the ergometer. What was it that attracted you to doing the sessions? Because I think Hamish used to go off on the bike, didn't he, for the afternoon session? You used to go and train on the erg.
I just got to a point, you know, and it progresses like any youngster out there will know. You know, I think Noel gave me after Rio like a spreadsheet of all my 2K ergs from like when I was first in the program in like 2000. And he goes, here you go. And it's like this. And it's like, holy shit, that's what I did in 07 and 08. And so you saw them, you know, and you see some that go really slow and then got quicker and quicker. But I just got faster and faster and faster. And, by the time when you're trying to make sure that you don't get asked about selection, if you want to be number one, what do? You be the fucking best. And so I was just like, I'm going to be number one on the machine. So, my PBs are 41. And of course, I was just trying to hit like 42s, 43s, whatever, because I knew that if Hamish did it, like if he was, because a lot of times, like he'd be like, I just don't want to bust my back. I don't need to prove anything. So he never really, like he'd do other stuff, but not that. Then the next person would be struggling to break 550. So you're just looking at it going, well, like there's no way you'd ever not be selected. And just that's how you started off. Even like when we're in the 4, it's like I need to be at the top of the list, because if you're not selected, you can't go and race, so you've got to be the best. So just subsequently from that, we always did good time on it, like our 20K was just bread and butter. Push as hard as you can at 20 strokes a minute and just see how low, keep your heart rate in check and just go for it. And so that got faster and faster and faster. And it was just like, wow, this is quick. And then you do like Dick would say, oh, okay, I want you to do, at 5K at 20, 5K at 22, like 20, 22, 24, 26 or whatever. So it'd be like, shit, okay, this is quite hard. And then you just all of a sudden you're like looking at it going, man, I'm holding 28 rate, for 5K. And I'm sort of holding mid 130s. You start going, shit, that's quite quick. And then you do the math and you go, oh, that's actually a 15:35K at the end of a session. You're starting to go, okay, I'm going pretty quick. And so you're just subsequently going to look at the records and go, oh man, that's not bad. I think I can do that. And so then it just helps you with your motivation. And so you just find something that's going to motivate you and tick you along. And especially with us, we're just trying to build the mile. So by the time we'd get to December, we've only done one race, which normally we'd either be in the singles or something like that. And so I had to find something that was just going to make me really push the training period. And so Dan, I'd say to him, look, let's have a crack at the half marathon, or how about we have a go at 10K? And then he would just plan it. So from Josh's question before, he'd just plan it for like 4 weeks, and there'd be like 2 sessions a week that would go as part of your training. And they'd be a full high intensity, like we're going to adapt to physiology. So when you get to do your piece, you should be on game. And that's really just what happened. And then of course you go into it and you go, right, last session before we knock off for like 4 days or 5 days over Christmas, and then, build it back in. It's like, right, let's do it, and so you bash out. And like, I knew that someone would get both of them, and I knew it would have to take someone like pretty good, and to see Conlon McCabe, he just broke the half marathon record that I had, and he did it quite well, like 40 seconds or something quicker. And I was just like that holding, I was bang on 136 flat, and he was like 135 and a half for an hour and just an hour and 7 minutes or something. And you're just like, that's fast, and you've got to be fit, and you've got to be efficient, and you've got to be good to be able to do that. And so that's really just what you've got to try and do. Like you're the fastest person that's ever covered that distance. So of course you just like, if someone else thinks they're like good enough, like, come on, man up and give it a go. And so there's a lot of people out there that'll be like, oh, I'll give it a go. Yeah, I reckon I could beat them. And you're like, yeah, they could beat them from that country. And you go, well, come on, like it's hard. And like, it's not something you go into lightly, because if you fail, you're in a world of hurt. And nobody in rowing, and all the top guys like myself, you ask anybody, if you go in to do something, you never ever stop, And so if you're behind, you're not just going to go, fuck it, I'll just do it. No, I'm not going to make it, because you don't want people to know, oh, so-and-so attempted your record and they couldn't do it. What does that do to your mental skills, and your mental like courage going forward if you do that? And other people knowing it, they'll be like, yeah, you gotcha, and there is a psychological thing with that at the same time, because if you can get into someone and you can just poke them a little bit, that's really going to help push people along. And that's really what it was with us, is just do it so that you can show people like, you got to be good to come and race us, and you're always trying to find that advantage, because like we're always just trying to win, and you do what you have to put the odds in your favor that you're going to win. And if a lot of that comes under people not having the confidence to go, oh, I think we can beat Eric and Hamish today, unless they know they can do it, it's still in the back of your mind, like we're probably not going to beat them today. And when you're behind, instead of you going and just like taking the bull by the horns and going for it, you just succumb subconsciously to the fact that you're going to get second. And so that's really a lot of what this stuff was about, was when you got dive deep into it, you want to be like, that's, you know, people put things on social media and stuff for people to go, far out, oh shit, you know, like look at it. And of course, so when we'd put sessions on there, you know that your competitors are looking at it going, you know, like I think probably one of the most impressive ones that I ever put online that I did, it was started 2016, like Olympic year training. Like I did 4 2Ks with a 3-minute break in between, and they were all sub 6. They were all 5:59 on the dot. Whoa. And so like I remember doing that, and Dan had said it, and he goes, I've set you this hard session today. I don't reckon you'll do it. And it was four sets at like 6:04, because it was like 1:31 was our pace that we were working on and all this other stuff. And I said, mate, I could do these like sub 6 minutes. And he goes, oh, if you do, I'll buy you a beer. And I said, deal, should we do it? And he's like, yeah, I bet you can't. And of course, he said, I can't do it. So what am I going to do? I'm not going to let that happen. And so of course, at the third piece, I remember finishing it going, I think I'm broken. Like, I don't think I can finish this next one. And I could see Dan, and he was just like almost laughing, going, there's no way you're going to do this. And then the next piece, I remember going through the K in like 3:03, and I was just like, nah, I'm going to do it. And I just put the gas down, about 600 to go. And before that, they'd all been pretty controlled rates, like say 36, and just tap it along. And this is like 38, 39, just going for it. And of course, when it finished and it flashed over like 5:59, I was like, done it. And of course, I remember putting it online, and you just see like hundreds of comments, people just going, you know, I wish I could do that for one. And you're like going, I did them pretty quick. But that was the level that we put ourselves at in training, you know, and when you look back on what you had to do to get yourself there, like that's, you know, and any athlete will tell you it's the year upon year upon year of just keeping on pushing your boundaries and your benchmarks higher and higher and higher as much as you can. And it will put you in those positions.
Yeah. Josh Butler's got another question. You know, please do come in with questions if you like to Eric to answer them. But did you ever play around with the rig of the pair? If so, what did you do?
Oh, we had one go. We had one go with me and Stroke, and it was fucking amazing. It was so fast. We would have smashed every record. So I know you've said it before on something. I can't remember what I was listening to about. No, I think it was one of the races. It was in 2016, and like a lot of people don't realize, like we raced Rio in like a 3-year-old Empacker. Like we didn't need a brand new one. You know, we tried carbon riggers. Hamish got us all back, you know, so we just went, no, I'll just keep what we're doing. And funnily enough, this is another story. I don't even know if it was in our book. So we raced, and I think you might have mentioned it something. And at Lucerne, you mentioned at Munich, I think I remember back. In Lucerne, the Czechs raced in our pair, and they qualified. I think they qualified, whatever it was. And then they raced the World Cup in it, and we had a brand new boat. And we were racing it, and just Hamish just didn't like it, just didn't fucking like it. And so then we got Rainer to bring it to a training. Where were we training? Wherever we were training, maybe in Circe, and we did some pieces. And Hamish goes, nah, we're taking this one to Rio. Ring up Rainer and tell him we're not having that new boat. And so literally we had to get our manager to drive it, because the containers were like leaving just after Lucerne. And so basically it had to be in there like on the Friday. And so we put it in the container and we sent it, and then we trained for the rest of the period in the other one. And it felt okay, but it was just too stiff. Like we just didn't like the vibration you got from it. We just liked that little bit of give. So we took all the carbon off, and we put like steel foot systems in, wooden. We put like wooden seats back in. We put wooden back on the aluminium riggers, and just put everything back to just that little bit more feel and softness. And trained a lot better with it. And and so then subsequently when we turn up in Rio, like pair that we'd used the whole time. In terms of our like setup, we used 377 oars the whole time, fixed handles. We never ever changed the length, never ever changed the inboard. We played around a little bit with a pitch. In the end, we actually put a bit of lateral pitch on our blade, so that at the catch you get a really good lock on for Hamish, and me not so much. So our pins were like both going one way, if that makes sense. So at the finish, I would hold it in a bit better than he would. and so I could control the finish a bit better, but it allowed him at the catch to get really good lock on before I could. So he would have like, say, 6 degrees at the front, 9 in the middle, 12 at the finish. And I was like the opposite. So I was like 12, 6, 9. So I'd get a little bit better around the finish and stuff like that. So we played with that, and we actually found, and it may sound minimal, right? But it actually made a really big difference to like the way that we rode. And in terms of our height, we actually rode really low. So we were like 160, but we packed up our seats so that we would have like 275 off the water. So we wanted to have nice and low here around the finish and have enough height off the water. And then it would just give you a really good angle of attack, like to the actual stroke. And so, you know, you see a lot of people rowing and it looks like they're rowing way up here. Whereas if you look at a lot of our stuff, it's really flat. And so it just allows you to like hang under the armpits, not be like up in here or anything, and just be long. You know, like Drew had an amazing stroke and style, like him and James, but they did look like they rode quite high because, you know, they were that old style, like right up, sort of looked like they were really hanging quite high. Whereas we just wanted to hang real low and just keep it real flat. And so that's basically what we just became accustomed to, just having it at that low stuff. You know, we just rode, and I it sounds sort of stupid, but you know, everybody just gets into a thing, and like maybe we should have had a play, but everybody just gets into like, this is what we're always been rigged at, and we'll just stay at it. You know, oh, this is what we did back in the 80s, and we just changed it because everybody else has it one length. You know, and so I'm pretty sure we would have had a lot of the coaches and everyone at the regattas going and measuring up our oars and measuring up the boat, and probably sometimes going, is that 160? Are you sure? Like, are you sure that's the height? You know, because they all sneak around and they get to take measures and shit out and have a good play. Like Noel does it all the time, and he does it blatant. And of course, so I'm sure a lot of times people would have gone, because at one stage Hamish was rowing at like 155, real low. But what he wanted was, well, okay, everyone teaches you not to have the water up the shaft, but what if we're getting water up the shaft and we're still going fast? You know, so it just sort of became the process of what we were doing in terms of the rig. And we just left it that way. So, you know, feet basically stayed in the same position the whole time. We just, you know, it took us a little bit of time to find it in the first couple of years. And then all our measurements, and the great thing about Impact, like when we did get like a couple of ones, like when we come from overseas, you know, everything had been taken out, fully cleaned and buffed up and stuff. So we've just put everything back in. And from what we had in New Zealand to what we had in when we went overseas was just millimeter accurate. And we just like measure it, bang, that's it, get in, and we could just race. You know, you didn't have that new boat, or is it going to be exactly the same? You know, do we need to just pull it back on the gunnel or that type of thing? And that was really what we did. And we just found something that worked as well. And we just never changed. Probably one. It does amaze me, you know. I do a bit of stuff with concept too, and I don't know how many people have got into it, but we rode with an oar. I don't know if you've heard of them, the low eyes. So they're a low inertia. They're called a low eye.
Yeah.
So the Danish lightweights use them, and we use them. And honestly, I sometimes sat there, you know, and now I'm retired, I can bloody just tell everything and all the secrets, because like I remember sitting there sometimes. That's probably a little bit why we used to rate quite high as well, because it's a lighter oar. You know, it's about 350 to 400 grams lighter. And so that makes quite a big difference, okay, like with the change in direction, but it's the same stiffness. So now all of a sudden you've got a lighter piece of kit, and it's stronger. It's about as strong, like it's pretty strong. And we were just able to move the hand so quickly with the inertia. So that's why it's called low inertia. And all of a sudden we were just zooming along. And I remember coming back to like club stuff, getting with an old oar, going, how do you hold on to this lamppost? Like it was horrendous. And it'd be really, really difficult. Both Hamish and I would basically take our oars and go back to our club to row like in the 8s and the 4s and stuff. And we'd take our oar because we just couldn't use the other one. And I just found it so smooth and so free and everything. And I was just like, why has nobody else like tried these or clicked onto them? And, you know, and I know you can't just buy as many oars as you want to try them, but like there was a few people using them, but not many. And subsequently, like, man, I loved it. Like we got into those like 2010, 2011, and we just kept, and the same thing, like we never had to go and get brand new oars. We just used the same ones that had like just worn in, and so you were good, you know, that was the feel. It was just being able to get in there and know what you were using and away you went. So that was, you know, that's probably the one thing about the oars. It was really like weird that nobody else had really sort of, it wasn't everywhere, you know. Subsequently now, you know, as the trends go with everything, everyone's gone to a skinny blade, like skinny shaft and stuff like that. But you still don't see a lot of like the low eyes. And so maybe it jumped to technology and we were just ones that jumped on board with it, and now it's somewhere else, you know?
Eric, talk to me about you in the single and racing Hamish in the single.
I enjoyed racing the single. I hated training it. I was terrible. I think I remember listening to Pete Reed's podcast, I think on Rower's Choice, and I think he might have been, it was a podcast with someone, and they were just like, yeah, we did the singles, but I just hated it. You know, like, I think the reason was I just wasn't good at it. You know, like, there's people that are good in the single and then there's people that aren't. And when I mean I wasn't good at it, you know, Hamish and Mahe and a couple of the other boys would just row away in training and you just couldn't keep up. You know, like they're holding one or two splits quicker and you just can't keep up, you know. And so you just become accustomed to the fact that no matter how hard you try, you're just not going to keep up. And so you give yourself a bit of a head start and try and hang on for as long as you can. And when you're in a big squad setting, you know, there's like 10 singles on Karapiro, you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to try and beat so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, and I'll get home, you know. And that was just what you became accustomed to. But in terms of racing, I always had one good race in me. I like, you know, one where you go, you know what, I'm going to fly and die, literally everything out the window. And so the 2012 year was when Bondi was a bit injured and we raced North Islands, and I was racing Mahe and it was rough as shit weather, and he like went through me about 500 to go, and that's what he's always done. You know, that's basically where I get caught. And so he was just like all relaxed, and I got to like 300 to go and I went, nah. And I just put the foot down and I raised, like I was rating like 44 or something like that. And I passed him on the line. And he just was not happy because he didn't, not like he just didn't realize that I was going to like do that to him, and just literally, he was just thinking I was going to roll over and be like, oh, wow, I got second. Don't worry about it. But I was like, nah, like that. And so I just went hard. And of course, probably because I caught him out, and then everyone's like, oh, and then, you know, you got a bit of media and they're saying, oh, shit, you're getting beaten by, you know, so you don't want to be in those situations. But it was all fun, you know. But in terms of training against him, like Mahe was in a world of his own in terms of training speed. It was like freakishly phenomenal. You know, he'd probably be trying to hold, you know, like 156 in the single, you know, like training against, like he's pacing the woman's double just every day. And that was just him, you know, he would just be this steam engine, just chug along. And then Hamish was the same. Like Hamish was just a freak when it came to like the training and his aerobic ability, and that just helped him with like the single. And so he was really quick for a few years. And I said to him, you know, why don't you, buddy, give the single a go? But he just knew, I think he knew that he couldn't have gone any quicker. Whereas, see, like Mahe in February is not Mahe in August. Like Mahe in August is a different beast. Like maybe not so much now, I don't know, because, you know, he's getting older. But when in the heyday, around that sort of 2011, 12, 13, 14, when Mahe was fit in August, and then when there was Mahe fit in February, he'd still probably be winning in February, but he was like in another league again. And so even though you beat him, Bondi's like, I don't think I'm going to get that much quicker if I ever win in the single. And I just don't, like, I think the training, to be honest, in a single, mate, I couldn't do it, I take my hat off to every single scutter out there, I just couldn't do it. I'm a team player, you know, I love just like having a bit of banter and chatting and having a laugh and bits and pieces. And the single, you're just like sitting there, and when it's shit, it is terrible. Like, I'd just be like, sometimes you just want to stop and go, what am I doing, you know? But in the end of it, you're like, okay, like, I'm trying to get fitter so the pair goes faster, so I'll do what I have to because Hamish enjoys it, and I'll, you know, but it was good fun, you know. And in the end, I'd still be like the third fastest in the country, which you sort of look at, you know, I might not have been the third fastest trainer, but I was still like, when it came time to national champs, you know, for 3 years in a row, whatever, I got third. So I didn't really care. It was just, it was what it was, and it was just a means to an end to sort of just help keep that freshness that was in the pair.
Yeah. one of the things that strikes me, you look in pretty good form now. You know, we have talked about the problems of athletes leaving, you know, top class competition or life in sport and making an adjustment. How have you managed to sort of transition or not? How's that going with you?
I personally believe, and like I was just lucky because, you know, when I before I made the team, you know, we were in the old school, I would say almost amateur. You were working for your living and you were training for rowing, and you could still do, and like you had to, because we didn't really start getting like full on funding until like '09, sort of
Yeah,
even just before that, maybe '08, '09, '10. So even before that, you had to be producing results. So if you were like new in the team or you weren't getting results, you're getting like, oh, here's like 25 grand a year. And you're just like, man, that's nothing. You know, how am I going to live on that? And so you had to work. And like some people would study and get allowances or, you know, student loan bits and pieces. But I was working for what was a boat building company here. And I went into management of it, bits and pieces. So when I actually called it a day, I already had them saying, hey, do you want to come back and do stuff? And it was public relations, bits and pieces. So I'd had the skills, I'd done study at the same time. So in my opinion, to the athlete that's coming through that wants to make a career of it, you can't tell me, and looking back on it as well, like you waste a lot of time. And I know rest's really important. And I know this gets really deep because ultimately the programs, and there's so much talk about bullying and pressure and stuff, the program doesn't want you to be doing anything else because it's going to affect the program. Okay, but we need to be actually doing stuff outside. So if you were an athlete and you're studying accounting or whatever, and you go, how about I go and do some internship somewhere, and you go and you work for them for 5 hours a week. If you do 2 Olympic cycles and you do maybe an occasional week on, week off here where like you've got a break from rowing, all of a sudden you finish and they're like, hey, do you want to be a partner in it? Or, you know, you might win. And then they're like, hey, you know, do you want to work at a bigger firm? How about we move you to another section or whatever, and you can come and work in the environment and all of this. So you've actually had like 8 years of experience, where a lot of what happens is you leave sport, let's use a round number, as a 30-year-old, and you study, you got a degree, whatever it might be, you have no work experience. You go back to where the university leaver comes out at 21.
yeah,
Okay. And you're 30 years old, and then you've got this 22-year-old as your boss telling you what to do, and like going back to being on like a medium salary, which I don't know, in the UK might be say 30, 40K or maybe 30,000 pounds or something. And you're just like, fuck, this isn't much, you know, like, and it's not like you're expecting going, hey, you know, I was earning really good money with sponsorship and stuff when I'm rowing. And you just expect to walk into another job at the same pay that you were getting from the government to be able to row. You're probably dreaming. Like, we at the top level, we were like getting reasonably good money. And so of course, like enough to get by and pay your mortgage and bits and pieces. And then all of a sudden, if you leave and you just think that that's going to be handed to you on a plate, that's where I think that just a little bit of reality check needs to happen. And so it's just people realizing that if you don't do anything while you're doing your rowing, you're going to come out of it where that person 10 years ago, you've basically just done 10 years of something different, and then you've got to go back and start in the queue. You know, you can't just go and fit straight into middle management or top management. You've got to start at the bottom and work your way up. You know, you might get a little bit of a foot in the door, but I think that's where a lot of that athlete stuff comes from. And yep, everybody as well is different around like their focus and what they want to do, and just their mental, like, did you leave on your terms? Did you just get cut, or did you get injured that it finished? All of those facets have a massive play on how you feel as an athlete as well.
yeah. How does it work with you when you get on the rowing machine now? I mean, how do you work out the numbers that you're doing? And
Oh, well, see, I'm really lucky because I started working with Concept 2 here in New Zealand. And I'm working in business development, so growing the business and bits and pieces. So we're just doing like the skis and the bikes, and we're doing everything. So working in that space. Plus, I work with a sensei who does the rowing app, and so it connects with Concept 2 and stuff. So of course, we're doing a whole lot of coaching stuff with that, and it's really cool. Like, for the general public, the connected coaching that it gives you is amazing, you know. And we want to ramp it up, and I want to put a bit more like higher stuff in there for sort of the middle person trying to get a lot fitter or a lot faster, or trying to set some personal targets. So that's all in the pipeline as well. So that's sort of been my main gig. And the hardest part is I get on the rowing machine and I'm not doing too bad in numbers. Like, well, compared to what I was, they're pretty terrible. But you're sort of trucking along going, oh, it's not too bad. But of course, I've got to talk at the same time, and you're filming all this stuff in bits and pieces. So it's a little bit harder than just getting on and training. But I know how good the rowing machine is for fitness, and you can jump on a bike, and there's just so much ways of definitely around mental health where exercise is such a big issue. And if you're just beating away, you're getting a sweat on and you're really enjoying what you're doing and just like getting the endorphins going, I think that really just helps, like not just us, but everybody, and if you're just sitting at home doing nothing, you can't even go outside for a walk. I reckon it really does play on your mental health. And I think that's why you'll see so many people just going to gyms or getting CrossFit or on the bikes or the rowers or whatever they have to do to get fit, because it is a really important part. And I guess as an athlete, when you're at full competition, you don't really see that because you're just like, hey, I'm rowing as hard as I can to win some shit. Whereas everybody else in the world is actually doing your sport for like a bit of enjoyment and fun to keep fit so they can have takeaways on a Saturday and drink half a dozen beers. Like that's what they do it for. And so you just basically go back to their mentality going, oh, this is cool, and so it just becomes quite just relaxed. And the reason that you're doing it, you're like, you know what, if I do 40 minutes every other day and I might go for a bike ride somewhere in between or I go for a walk, whatever, you just stay healthy. And I think that's the thing, like fitness is just so important. And we lose that because of where we go with our elite stuff. And when you come back off it, you're no longer an elite that's going out and training like 2 hours a day. It does wind right back in. And so you just become realistic about what you're doing. Like I think I did one of those world rowing, like 1K ones. And I think I did like a 2:53 and I was just absolutely cooked. I was just like, man, there's no way. And of course that was a full out sprint, like one of those ones in lockdown, they did challenge and like Bondi and Ollie and all of that were in a big team together. And of course they were just absolutely pumping it. And here's me like doing a 2K. And I think I did like 6:18 and I nearly fucking died. And I was just like, oh, but of course if you're not doing the speed work, like I was just sitting on the bike or, I was actually watching like a lot of rowing videos and bits and pieces and just Netflix, everything else. And just staying fit, just bide your time, get a sweat on for an hour and then get off and you've done that. You might not have to do tomorrow, the day after, and that's it. It just allowed you to stay fit and healthy.
Yeah, Eric. Just I don't know where all the time's gone. Just a couple more questions, really.
That's right. Go for it.
I was talking with Adam Creek about parties in Pickwicks, and the story of a swan came up, and I wondered if you could verify that.
Yeah, mate, that's probably one of the best. That's probably one of the best stories. I pull that picture out when I do speeches, and I show them this picture of me holding a swan, pretty drunk. And then there's this picture of Hamish, like black and white, and I'm like, this is us, like chalk and cheese. Hamish is straight. He does have a good time, but he's just like meticulous, methodical, bang. And here I am, optimistic, she'll be right, just take it as it comes, that type of mentality. And that's what did make us go well. So yeah, I think it was 07. It was either 07 or 08. And yeah, Pickwick's party. And Adam, I don't even know how we did it. Next minute, we're down the road, sort of heading wherever it was, and we jumped in the water, and there were these swans by these boats, and he's like, "Let's catch a swan." So we caught a swan, and they're fucking heavy. They're actually quite big. And here's us walking back to the party. The bloody thing's trying to nip us. And we were still in our jeans because we didn't want to get, in case we pulled up. And next minute we brought it back to the party, and of course we're walking down that alleyway beside the river to Pickwicks, and everyone's just like, what the fuck? And then of course we just took it into the party, and of course a lot of people hadn't seen it, so we'd literally come up behind their head with the swan's head, and they just shit themselves. They these couple of American girls, and they just were like, ah! And they were just like, what are you doing? And it wasn't until the lady that was running Pickwicks basically came out going, put it back in the water or I'm calling the cops. And so we were like, okay, we better put it back in the water. But it was good fun. I think the one thing I really enjoyed those times, you look back on it and, you talk to so many of the old people that your rivals and competitors that were in the same time and generation that you were, that you actually got quite friendly with. and you had to have good fun. Like, I think if you take things really seriously, there's a difference between like super serious and then serious. You've got to take it with a bit of reality. And if you're just locking yourself in your room and you're just training, like, but then if you can ask yourself the question, like, hey, we've got a day off, should we go and have a look up that mountain and walk around, do some tourist stuff? Is that going to affect my training? Probably not. If you go to Pickworks and you have a few beers and you've got a couple of days off, okay, you're not spewing your ring out on the toilet the next morning. You're just having a good time and have a bit of a boogie, and then you're back at home by like 1 o'clock. It hasn't been super late, and you go about having a couple of days off back into training. And so that was my jam. Like, that's what I enjoyed doing. And if you don't do that stuff that you enjoy, like, why are you doing it? And so, of course, I wanted to have a good time at the same time that we're having a good time rowing. And it's just a matter of marrying the two together, and know that you, like, memories that you create, you look back on and go, shit, that was fun. And that's what we're talking about now,
Yeah. Eric, it's been amazing talking to you. Covered so much. You're a great raconteur, and are you ever gonna come back to Europe and watch some rowing, or are you in New Zealand for good now?
Well, I was meant to be in Tokyo, so I was going to run a tour group with a whole lot of supporters that were going to go and do stuff like at the games. And last I'd heard, come December, was that it was still all go. And so it was sort of like, so that's still up in the air as well, because like this time last year, before all this kicked in, I was like going, yeah, man, I can't wait. This year's going to be so good, because like I was renovating my house and playing a bit of golf, just like getting back, doing work. It was really good. And I was like, and I'm going to have like 10 days in Tokyo and just have an amazing time as a spectator, rather than being there, have the fun that you have as a second week of an athlete, but on the other side of the fence for that like 10 days, like quite a bit of time. And so I was really looking forward to that. And then subsequently, yep, gone. And now I'm sort of sitting there going, oh man, even if you do go, we might have to, like, if I have to come back and isolate for 2 weeks, I'm not going. Like, it'll be cool, but it's just, I can't take that much time off, So that's going to be the situation. But definitely, if I get the chance to come back to Europe, I would be on a plane, just be like, yep, let's go. And this is what I like, you think about it and you think about how it was going. Like, I can't see that coming back into line for at least a couple of years, and you've got to get realistic about it, and you've got to say, like, shit, until things have settled down, we've got on top of it, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything, like, unless it's for a specific purpose. And that's what's going to be starting to really hurt a lot of places in the economy, is just like tourism. And even if it's local tourism, if you can't bloody go out anywhere, like, people are just going to be like, you know what, I got to fucking shut my doors. Like, the government's not going to help. So we haven't seen the worst of it, you know what I mean? So I think it's something that I know, like, I've seen it in a couple of articles, and I don't like thinking about it, but it literally could end up being a 5-year period, and it's our generation's world war. Like, like, not in terms of all the stuff, but in terms of everything just stood still until we got on top of it. And it could take a couple of years. If you can't produce the 7 billion vaccines or whatever we need, and then actually, if it does change, or if you've got to keep vaccinating everyone every year and all this sort of stuff, it becomes our modern day war, and you've got to keep on top of it. And then people are like, I want to travel here. You can't do this, can't do that. Man, we've lost 10%, 15% of the workforce. And then shit, the government's sitting there going, how do we do it in the global economy? So I think it is really a difficult time for everybody, and I think it's just something that we're going to have to ride out and see where it goes. So
yeah. Well, let's hope and pray that there is some way that these Olympics can go on in August, and we get to see the New Zealand team flying, and I
think we'll do. This is going to be the great thing, because, like, even if it does go ahead and nobody actually does go and race in Europe, like, man, that would be such a pretty cool Olympics, because it really would show who's been training hard. but I think it would also show who has the best programs. And I think that looking at it, I don't know like what's happening in the UK and stuff at the moment, but like I know that's like Australia, New Zealand are still centralized. You know, everybody's still here, everybody's still training in their squads. They've still got their really good crews like still humming along. And so it's just like if we had the Olympics this year and we didn't race, out of all of the crews around the world, who's actually done the best preparation by themselves at home with your other crews to be able to do that? And I think that could end up being like, if it does go ahead and they actually don't, a lot of countries go, you know what, like, and it's sort of typical American style, normally Olympic year, you know, a lot of times they just never showed up.
Yeah.
And they just turn up to the Olympics and everyone's like, well, how quick are they? Because you didn't know. I think it'll just be one of those situations and everybody's on that field sitting there going, right, we've raced this other crew, like number 2 crew or whatever at home, but we haven't raced against like the Sinkoviches or buddy Tom and Mike or whoever, and you're just like, wow, okay, what's going to happen? You know, so it could be really interesting come like if that does happen, and it will just literally show who did the best job while things were tough. You know, and I think there's a lot of people that could possibly be sitting there going, I probably haven't done enough, because it's like, you know, to try and stay motivated knowing that you had another year to do it in bits and pieces, you're like, okay, I'll have a bit of a break and then I'll build it back up again. But are you fully onto it? You know, even now, like as an athlete, I'm not even going to ask any of them what they think, you know, because they're probably sitting there at the moment with like at home going, fuck, I don't know if it's going to happen, you know. And you've either got people like Mahe and Hamish going, should I just quit now? You know, like what's going to keep you training between now and when they call it off? Or if they don't quit, do you know what I mean? Like it's a really wicked period right now where if you were like counting down the days rather than counting up the days to like when the event was going to take, I think that's a really, really tricky place. And there would be not only a lot of rowers that you'll know that you're probably thinking you've done the time. You know, I'd probably name like a dozen of them at the moment. Olaf's probably another one. You know what I mean? So they're sitting there trying to train the house down. But you know, if it's not going to go ahead, like, would you rather, you know, literally, would you rather a bullet in the head or 5 in the chest and bleed out? You know, like you'd rather just go bang, it's over, and you'd be like, ah, damn it, and then walk away, rather than sitting like, how do you train knowing that? And I think that's really another thing at the moment is just finding people's mental resolve. Because if I carried on, you know, before I made the decision to retire, I don't think I was strong enough, because I'm 38 now. I don't think I was strong. Like maybe, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know whether I could have sat here going, oh, shit, you know, I don't think it's going to happen. How do you get up every day and punish yourself, you know, to the ability to be at Olympic gold medal standard? How do you don't know that every day with such a huge cloud hanging over your head? You know, it would be so difficult. And I do take my hat off to all the athletes out there that are sitting in that limbo now and have been since like, April last year, basically just wondering if it's going to happen, like just trying to train with like, what's your purpose, you know, like, so, you know, I think that's going to be a real telling sign if it does go ahead of the people that were allowed, like the people that were really, really motivated by it and the people that were really hungry for it. And then, you know, a whole lot of other people were just like, I couldn't get myself together and I just let myself down, you know, so.
Okay, Eric, we're going to end the live part of the broadcast there just to say thank you very much. It's been amazing. You've got such a great raconteur, so many brilliant anecdotes to tell about the world of rowing, and no wonder everybody misses you and misses your presence around the boat park. But thank you very much, Eric.
Oh, mate, of course I do. Of course I do. Thanks, Mark. It's been